through Matthew. I really like this Bible study stuff. When I was a kid, I liked all the stories, and I liked being in Bible class and talking about the Bible and the different stories in there. And it's funny because I was thinking about like all the different ways that we read the Bible. I've actually been reading through Judges a lot, or Judges recently, and it's funny, the Samson story is like this kind of funny kid story, but it is just a terrible story when you actually put it in context. Like Samson's role in just being this destructive force, and like Gideon, that's another one. Man, the Judges is just great, but we're not talking about that. We're in Matthew right now. So before we get started, I do want to say, like and subscribe, check it out, keep rolling with these videos. And as you go through this video, if you find something interesting, put a comment down below and get a conversation started. All right, that's what we're here to do. It's more fun to study the Bible with people that are going through it with you. So we're in Matthew chapter 16. And the Pharisees and Sadducees came, and to test him, they asked him to show them a sign from heaven. He answered them, when it is evening, you say, it will be fair weather, for the sky is red. And in the morning, it will be stormy today, for the sky is red and threatening. You know how to interpret the appearance of the sky, but you cannot interpret the signs of the times. An evil and adulterous generation seeks for a sign, but no sign will be given to it except the sign of Jonah. So he left them and departed. So, Pharisees and Sadducees come and say, hey, if you're the Messiah, give us a sign, right? And he's like, you evil and adulterous generation. One of the temptations that he stood up to in his 40 days, after his 40 days of fasting in the desert, Satan, basically asks him to test God, and he refuses, right? I think this is an interesting section for faith and what it means to have faith, and the Pharisees and Sadducees demanding proof. I think it's an interesting section, but I'm not going to go too far into it. The sign of Jonah is an interesting thing, though. It's brought up a few times. He actually talks about the sign of Jonah, and Jonah went down into the ocean. He was in the belly of the whale for 3 days. Many ancient Jewish rabbis thought that he died there, and he actually died and was resurrected when he was spit out on the beach. But and shortly Jesus is going to spell out even more explicitly what that means. But verse 5, when the disciples reached the other side, they had forgotten to bring any bread. Jesus said to them, watch and beware of the leaven of the Pharisees and the Sadducees. And they began discussing it among themselves, saying, we brought no bread. But Jesus, aware of this, said, oh, you of little faith, why are you discussing among yourselves the fact that you have no bread? Do you not yet perceive? Do you not remember the 5 loaves for the 5,000 and how many baskets you gathered? Or the 7 loaves for the 4,000 and how many baskets you gathered? How is it that you fail to understand that I did not speak about bread? Beware of the leaven of the Pharisees and Sadducees. Then they understood that he did not tell them to beware of the leaven of bread, but of the teaching of the Pharisees and the Sadducees. So again, this idea of leaven is used as, it's almost like if you took this idea of leaven, it's religion or ideology. And in some cases, Jesus is talking about how the kingdom of heaven is like leaven. That when you put it into 3 measures of flour, right, which would be enough for like 90 or 100 loaves of bread, it would have fed a lot of people. And this idea is you put a little bit in there and it works its way throughout the dough, right? But once you put it in there and it starts, it goes. And he's saying that the ideas of the Pharisees and the Sadducees here are like leaven as well. And so this idea, he's saying, don't let these impure thoughts, these, it goes back to the other parable about Satan sowing seeds, weeds among the wheat. And how some seeds take root and they're good, and some seeds take root and they're bad. And so this idea of letting the leaven gather, after the challenges of the Pharisees and Sadducees, right, he's telling them, don't let this doctrine, don't let this ideology ruin you, right? Turn you into something that you're not meant to be. The leaven of the kingdom of heaven is what we want to grow and spread here, not the leaven of the world. Right? Or even a religious system. So, very interesting take here. And he rebukes the disciples here for not getting it too. So, this is funny because, again, a lot of people talk about how Jesus is this nice guy. Jesus is a perfect example that we want to live up to. But when he rebukes somebody, we write that off as, well, that's only for Jesus. When he's nice to people, we're like, oh, we're supposed to be nice like Jesus. But when he rebukes people, are we supposed to be the same? Paul thinks so. And in lots of his letters, he talks about reprimanding the church and instituting church discipline and making sure that people are living up in the fullness of their faith, not just part of their faith. And I think that the message of love is the baby food, actually, because it's easy to wrap your head around the fact that if you are forgiven, that you should extend that grace to other people. If you really feel forgiven to that level, then a natural outpouring is for you to also be forgiving. What's not so natural is how to use truth to love like God does, because there's equal measures there of truth and love in God's message. And if we're not rebuking people and standing up for the truth, then we're not being like Jesus. So an interesting take here, but that comment about the leaven is an interesting one. I do a little bit of baking, and it's kind of funny because it really does just take a little bit of yeast, and it spreads throughout an incredible amount of dough if you let it. So it's just really funny to me. But anyways, there's verses 1 through 12 of Matthew chapter 16. So that's all I have for today. And then we'll get into some of Peter's shenanigans next. He's one of my favorite disciples. He's a firecracker. But anyways, that's what I have so far for today. So like and subscribe, like I said, and I'll catch you in the next video. All right, peace.